Before I talk about my Kako trip, I really need to tell the backstory because it's kind of neat how things came full circle with my trip to Kako this last summer. I'll start back in the early 1980s. So I was born in Zambia in southern Africa as a missionary kid. My parents were missionaries there with a mission called African Evangelical Fellowship, which eventually became part of SIM. And part of the mission organization was an aviation program, and they operated a single Cessna 185, and it was used to transport missionaries and locals and material around Zambia. So from an early age, I grew up seeing this airplane and another 185 flying over my house on approach to landing or after departure on the takeoff. As we got older and had to go to boarding school, I actually flew to boarding school in this airplane. And here's a picture of me, all excited, getting ready to go to Sakaji in the Cessna 185. The pilot of that airplane was Gordon Baki, who was a missionary in Zambia for many years. You can see him and my dad here actually fueling up the 185. And so that was my exposure to aviation at a young age. I always loved it, and always loved airplanes. And you can even see from the picture here the tail number for my little airplane matches that of the red and white one. So grew up loving aviation and had a desire to be a missionary pilot my whole life. So fast forward a few decades, and Gordon Baki is living in Washington State, and he has started to fly at this ministry in Alaska called Kako. And he told me about it 10 or 15 years ago, actually, as we've stayed in touch. And in the last couple of years, I realized, hey, this is something that I might be able to do now that I have enough flight experience. So this was a really, really neat opportunity where the person who really first exposed me to missionary aviation as the pilot flying over my house and transporting me to school was the one who told me about Kako. And he still flies. He's in his 80s, and he's flown at Kako for I want to say 10 to 12 summers over the last 15 years or so. This Kako story I'm about to share really wouldn't have been possible without the influence of Uncle Gordy, as he was known to me growing up in Zambia. And not only his influence early in my life, but also on into the recent years. So thanks, Uncle Gordy, for really making this possible.
Auluk stengto jamak bil ngaito. Marami nakakautlugmi inachtif kalaranga. Maramslu ejoit kapichtrim janenun diuli kachtlaranga. Uchika binirif.
Just got done cleaning the windshield from bugs on the 182. That's the Cherokee 6 in the background. There's the 206, runway behind me, and then several houses, one of which is the pilot's house. Everyone is out playing. It is after 10 p.m. here in Alaska. You would have no idea. These are the pilots I overlapped with from left to right. We've got Jonathan Pence, who lives at Kako. He's the CEO of the retreat center. In the middle is Jeff Wainwright. There he is again. He flew the 182. And then in this shot next to me is Byron Paul, volunteer native pilot who flew the 206, and Jonathan Pence again next to Byron. I flew with both Byron and Jonathan to complete my orientation for Kako. Both flights in the local area as well as down at Bethel. Getting used to the Kako airstrip, the unique one-way approach. Technically, it's you can land downhill, which is reserved for extremely high winds or crosswinds. But most of really all the landings I did, other than practice, were uphill. You only take off downhill, though, as you can see in this example. You never take off uphill. Well, we are in some rain. Couldn't get back to Kako, so we landed at Russian Mission, and we're going to wait it out. So I flew with Jonathan and Byron a little over 4 hours, and completed my final checkout the morning of Saturday, the 3rd of July, and then started flying passengers, which was 3 kids from the conclusion of the previous week of grade school camp. So week 5 started out with really poor weather. This was my first day of flying kids, going to get kids and bring them to camp. And you can see in this clip all the rain that we had. And once I take off, you'll see the pretty low ceilings we were dealing with. That's pretty much how the flying was all that day. But thanks to being in Class G airspace in Alaska for all this flying, we were able to stay legal. Okay, we got William and Annalyn here, getting ready to go to camp. How old are you, William?
18.
18.
My last year.
Last year, and you've had a good time at Kako?
Yes.
This is, how many times have you been?
4.
This will be your 4th. How about you, Annalyn?
15.
15. You're a Kako veteran?
Huh?
Have you been to Kako before?
Yeah.
Yeah? So you excited to go back? Yeah. What do you guys like about Kako?
It's a good experience, and it's fun, and also you get to learn about the Lord.
About the Lord? That's awesome. That's great. What about you, Annalyn? What do you like about Kako?
I get to meet new friends, and it's pretty there, I guess.
Yeah, it is pretty. Although this great summer Alaska weather we're having here is not so great. All right, these are a couple loads of other campers that I flew later in the day. Towards the end of the day, I had to go to Russian Mission to get some campers, and you can see it's really close to Kako. It's just a 5-minute flight. On the way down, you can see the weather coming in here. It starts to get pretty bad, and with the rain coming in and the low visibility. I picked up the kids real quick, and we took right off, and you can see the weather hasn't improved much, so I ended up going northeast up the Yukon there. You can see the weather's clearer for a few minutes to see if that would give enough time for the weather to clear. We turned around, headed back, and it looked like we weren't going to be able to get back in, so I was planning to go to Russian Mission, but just as we were passing the entrance to the Kako area there, it cleared up, so I was able to change my plan and get back in and get the kids into camp. So the camp staff took real good care of the pilots, always having food ready for us if we had to leave before a planned mealtime. And a lot of planning went into making a schedule to go get the kids or to drop them off, and here you can see some of that planning in action. And what pops out the other end is a schedule that looks like this with the airplane and the pilot and destination and number of campers. So during that first full week of camp, when I wasn't flying, I was helping out where I could. I helped out at the rappel tower, belaying the rappellers, and there was also a climbing wall on the side of the tower that you can see there. And I helped at the shooting station where they had a couple 22s, and all the kids had a chance to try their hand at shooting. Every morning before breakfast, there's a little flag raising ceremony, and everyone recites the Pledge of Allegiance. One of the unique traditions at the camp is Thursday night dinner. Kids vote on what crazy utensils the campers have to eat with. So part of being in wet, rainy, muddy Alaska is taking your boots and shoes off before you come into the lodge. So this is what greets you at meal times and any other time the lodge is occupied. And throughout camp there's lots of this, Bible time, singing time with the kids, and as you can see, everyone has a great time. And they also have fun goofing off. Here are some of the counselors playing Chubby Bunny. So the Wednesday of Teen Week, I had the chance to go and pick up my dad from Bethel. He had volunteered to come up for 3 weeks and work at Kako. So he came up a week after me, and we overlapped for 2 weeks. And it was really cool being together, and special to be able to serve side by side and spend time together. And Dad got right to work. Here he is in action the day that he showed up at Kako. The other part of that first week I spent getting video material for the videos that I've been working on. So I interviewed a number of the camp staff. One of the duties of Kako pilots is to pick up the mail about once a week. So I did that on Wednesday after picking up my dad. When you get to Rush Mission, you either walk up to the post office, or if you're lucky, someone gives you a ride. And a generous individual gave me a ride in his trailer, which turned out to be really handy because we sure needed it with all the mail that I picked up. So this mail run completely filled up the airplane, and I went back to Kako and picked up a couple 15-gallon containers to pick up auto fuel.
So, what's happening, Dirk,
I'm fueling up,
on this rainy day?
getting ready to take a batch of kids home after a week of camp. The weather is horrible like it was on Monday when we brought them here. But it's good enough to fly. Barely.
Barely, okay.
I brought my drone with me to Kako, and it turned out to have several applications in addition to getting great aerial footage. When we had this bad weather, I was able to put it up and get a sense of what the visibility was like after we would take off. So it actually was quite useful in terms of giving us, or at least me, the confidence I needed to go flying when the weather was marginal. Here I am on final to Kako after a flight to St. Mary's. And these are some of the probably worse conditions that I landed in. It's hard to see anything without knowing what you're looking for, but I'm dropping into the first half of the runway there. I think I caught a wind gust and it moved me to the side. You fly around that bend and then touch down on the final straightaway. So contrast the last flight with what you're seeing here. I'm on my way back from the final flight on the 9th of July to Napakiak, and it's about 11:50 p.m. and the sun is just setting and it was just beautiful. So took the chance to fly towards the sun for a few minutes and enjoy the scenery. You can see how flat the tundra is, and I am at about 300 or 400 feet MSL. No, actually it's more like 250 or 300 in these clips. So that's probably about the average height I was flying on these bad weather days, but you can see from the terrain it's very flat, no towers, and the lower parts of the Yukon Delta, there's really no trees. As you get closer to the river, you do have some trees to deal with, and then the most challenging part is coming into Kako, where you've got those hills to deal with. I'll use this example to talk through a Kako arrival procedure, at least the arrival when you're coming in low. You cross the Yukon there, and you're at about 600 feet MSL or so. The hills off to the right are about the same altitude, so you're right about level with them. And you make a turn to the north, which is your left base leg for landing on in the west direction to Kako. Coming in at 500, you start to get slowed down, and you can see the light brown patch of grass up here. That's what we call the meadow, and it's marked on my iPad where you turn to final, at which point you're configured in the white arc about 90 miles per hour and 10 degrees flaps in the 182, and transition to 80 miles per hour and 20 degrees at the Beaver Dam where you see that water there. A patch of trees, and then drop down into the first half of the runway, slight bank, and you touch down ideally right at that corner there, and then you're there at Kako. With the poor weather at the end of week 5, we had several loads of kids to take that weekend. So on Saturday, we flew several times to get the remainder of the kids home. The weather was a lot better, so it was much more pleasant flying. And this is a great shot, aerial view of the 206 landing at Kako. Weekends are normally a chance for the camp staff to reset and rest a little bit before the next load of campers come in. It's also a time to fellowship. Here we are having staff church. A lot of the counselors, as you can see, very talented and musical. That Sunday, actually, my dad and I took a flight to Stony River to pick up a camper. It was the longest flight I had done. 140 nautical miles east of Kako is actually where Jonathan Penn's grew up, and came back late that night with a nice sunset. Starting off week 6, the final week of camp, here's the schedule. You can see my assignments at the bottom of the page there. The weather this week was absolutely gorgeous, and it was sunny all week long, so beautiful flying weather, and great for all the activities that the kids did throughout the week. During the week, Byron and I took a couple of four-wheelers to the top of the hill. Had beautiful scenery, got a lot of good drone footage here, which you'll see in some of the other videos, and just really enjoyed seeing amazing, beautiful place that is Western Alaska. What are you doing?
Doing some grinding and welding.
What's it for?
It's to reinforce one of the building roofs. It's a corrugated roof.
So on the non-flying days of this week, I spent a lot of time completing my staff interviews, as well as working on the Kako videos. My final days at camp were spent flying staff back to Bethel for their flights back home, as well as some luggage runs, and helping my dad with some projects. It really was, as Jonathan says in one of the interviews I did with him, Kako's a really special place, and it was special being with my dad, getting to spend time together and serve together. And it was a chance for Dad to see me living out my lifelong dream of being a missionary pilot, which in this case meant spending some time up in Alaska flying kids to and from Bible camps so that they could hear about Jesus. So it really was an awesome experience, a real blessing and a privilege for me to be able to fly in Alaska and to use my love and passion for aviation to serve the Lord. And I'm so thankful for the chance to do this, and I sure plan on doing it again.